WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
Hi, I'm Alison LaGrange and you're watching E-Club.
Here are the nominees for Achievement in Music.
People are totally wrong who keep telling me that, oh, you're a multitasker. I'm not.
Awards and fashion shows are in full swing.
Seeing a young, black man.
Hello and welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a quick look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Should foreign diplomats comment on internal affairs? This is a question we are asking tonight because of a particular statement by the US ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti. He talked about how the US wants to help India with the situation in the Indian state of Manipur. And this statement has triggered a series of questions. Should foreign diplomats comment on internal affairs? And is Washington really in a position to preach India? What about the state of affairs in the United States? And who appointed America as the global watchdog anyway? On Gravitas tonight, we discuss this and more. Also on the show for you tonight, as Asian Americans are denied tech leadership roles and they are going to court, we get you the bigger picture, how executives are a fig leaf, and the truth is a little more embarrassing. Tomatoes are now more expensive than gasoline in India. How did things even reach this point, and what explains this significant price jump? The Netherlands is now facing up to its colonial past and returning stolen artifacts to Indonesia and Sri Lanka. We tell you more. Is the thumbs up emoji good enough to be considered as a legit signature? We tell you what a Canadian court has said. If world politics was a soap opera, the United States would be the nosy, judgmental neighbor. Its own house, after all, is in complete disarray. But that does not stop Washington from judging and preaching others. Take their activism on Manipur, for example. This is a state in northeast India which is in the grip of ethnic violence. There are clashes between two communities, the Metis and the Kukis. The former wants a scheduled tribe status, the latter is against it. And this has led to violence. The Indian government is trying its best to resolve the situation. America says it can help. Nobody asked for its help. But unsolicited actions, you see, are an American speciality. And that's exactly what the American ambassador to India did. Eric Garcetti, he recently made an unwarranted remark on this issue, expressing his quote-unquote concerns on the situation and offered American assistance to India. But if we go by his statement, it reeks less of actual concern and more of a desire to embarrass New Delhi. Listen to this.
We pray for peace there. When you ask, does it concern the United States, I don't think it's about strategic concerns. I think it's about human concerns. I think all of us, you don't have to be Indian to care when children or individuals die in the sort of violence that we see. And we know that peace is the precedent for so many other good things. There's been so much progress in the Northeast and in the East here. The country has done some remarkable things in recent years, and those can't continue without peace. So we stand ready, willing, able to assist in any way if asked, but we know this is an Indian matter, and we pray for that peace, that it may come quickly, because we can bring more collaboration, more projects, more investment, if that peace is in place.
So you heard that. It's about human concerns. You don't have to be an Indian to care when children or individuals die in this sort of violence, says someone whose own country has witnessed a colossal rise in teenage deaths due to gun violence. Have a look at this report. Between 2019 and 2021, the number of children and teens killed by gunfire in the US rose by 50%. And if we speak of 2023 in particular, there have been around 13,900 deaths due to gun violence so far. And of those who died, 491 were teenagers, 85 were children. How many children have died in Manipur due to the violence? A few handful, and that is tragic. There can be no comparison, after all, when it comes to lives. But the point we're trying to make is simple. When there is violence in America, India does not preach Washington. But when there is violence in India, Washington always pokes its nose. And why just India? When there is violence in any part of the world, America treats it as its business to lecture them. And who exactly left America in charge of the world? Who appointed it as the global cop? Well, the Americans did that themselves. They believe that they are always right, their democracy is perfect, their politicians are flawless, and their society is ideal. And everyone else deserves to be lectured. The fact is, India does not need America's criticism or its praise. Not just India, most of the world is tired of American self-righteousness, especially given its own track record on law and order and minority rights. I have some more numbers for you. Have a look at this Pew survey from 2019. 82% Americans admitted that Muslims are discriminated against. 64% admitted to anti-Semitism. And there is a sizable population that continues to deny the Holocaust. Another survey by the Anti-Defamation League found that 63% Jews had experienced anti-Semitism in the last 5 years. And what about Native Americans? Well, 1 in 3 Native Americans have reported abuse, slurs, and harassment. And these are appalling numbers. And this is the country that is preaching the world. And I haven't even spoken about Black Americans yet. In the last 6 years, 34 Black Americans on an average were killed by cops per million population. 26 for Hispanics, just 14 for white Americans. So basically, getting pulled over is a normal experience for most white Americans, but for Black Americans, it is the difference between life and death. And all these reports, by the way, are proof of American smugness, American self-importance, and American self-righteousness. They are also proof of American hypocrisy. It is an exercise, after all, to whitewash a blotched history, a history that extends from slavery to race riots to now gun violence and police shootings. Yet, Washington believes it is endowed with the sacred right to preach. And it does not matter if the church is burning around it, does not matter if it's a friend or a foe. The bottom line is this: India-US relations are at a critical juncture. If Washington is serious about building a partnership with India, the lectures must stop. Partners trust each other to manage their own affairs. They don't lecture, they don't sanction, and they don't judge. Moving on for now. In a week from now, soldiers from the Indian Armed Forces will be marching in France's Bastille Day parade. As India and France mark 25 years of strategic partnership, the marching contingent has already left for Paris. What makes the participation in this parade so special, and what is the historic link here? Our next report telling you.
A 269-member tri-services contingent of the Indian Armed Forces has left for France. They will be participating in the Bastille Day celebration. The Indian Armed Forces will be marching along with their French counterparts in the parade in Paris on the 14th of July. Bastille Day, or the French National Day, marks the anniversary of the storming of the Bastille in 1789 during the French Revolution. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the guest of honor in this year's celebrations. He will be gracing the event as India and France mark 25 years of strategic partnership. Representing the Indian Army in the parade will be the Punjab government, one of the oldest regiments of the Indian Army that has participated in both World War I and World War II. Time for some history. When the First World War broke out, Indian soldiers then under the British Armed Forces were called upon to fight overseas. Over 1.3 million Indian soldiers were deployed around the world. In France, Belgium, Egypt, Sinai, and Africa. Around half of the new recruits were drafted from Punjab. There wasn't enough time to train them, but they were thrown into deep ends. In France, the Indian soldiers found themselves fighting some of the fiercest battles in Ypres, Givenchy, Neuve-Chapelle, Festubert, Las. Indian soldiers helped France fight Germany. When World War I ended, Sikh soldiers marched on the streets of France in a victory parade. It was during this parade that a French lady pinned a flower on the chest of one of the Sikh soldiers. This photo remains etched in history. A century later, Indian troops will once again be marching in Paris. Reports say 3 Rafale fighter jets of the Indian Air Force will take part in the flypast. The Indian Air Force has also sent a marching contingent, which will be led by a woman officer. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Have you heard of the term Swiss neutrality? It is one of the main principles of Switzerland's foreign policy. It dictates that Switzerland is not to be involved in armed or political conflicts between other states. And the country imposed this principle upon itself after the Treaty of Paris in 1815. Over 200 years later, is this policy about to change? Is Switzerland about to depart from neutrality? And here's why I ask this. Switzerland has signed a declaration of intent to join the European air defense system, Sky Shield. And this is being called a historic step for the country. But there are many who feel that this move might compromise Switzerland's long-standing policy of neutrality. We'll tell you how in just a bit. But first, let's just get to know what the Sky Shield is all about. It is a body to coordinate procurement of air defense systems. Its aim overall is to promote cooperation in training, research, logistics. The system was initiated by Germany following the onset of the war in Ukraine. It is designed to allow European countries to train together and also buy defense systems together. Some 19 European countries have so far signed up to the Sky Shield project. Besides Germany, this includes Britain, Finland, and Sweden. Switzerland and Austria are the latest entrants to this group. Just a few years ago, joining a Europe-wide defense system would have been unthinkable for Switzerland. But you see, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has changed things. Europe is unstable, and it has become inevitable for European countries to upgrade their air defense systems. And in Switzerland's case specifically, the country has come under increasing pressure from its European neighbors, to support Ukraine militarily, to allow the re-export of Swiss-made armaments to Ukraine. But the country was hesitant. Last month, Bern rejected a request by Swiss defense firm RUAG to sell 96 Leopard 1A5 main battle tanks for use in Ukraine. It has also previously vetoed requests from Denmark and Germany, which had wanted to send Swiss-made armored vehicles and ammunition to help Ukraine. But slowly and steadily, it has started to give in. And its entry into the Sky Shield is proof. But some Swiss politicians fear that Sky Shield is a compromise too far. And let me explain that with the help of an example. You see, if an attack heading for one of its Sky Shield neighbors flew over Switzerland, would the Swiss shoot it down even if it was not involved in the conflict? This is a dilemma many expect the Swiss government to resolve at the earliest. And the Swiss government says that despite signing an agreement to join the initiative, its neutrality remains unchanged. But there are way too many hypothetical questions that have not really been answered. And the Swiss are hoping that such a situation would never arise. But all said and done, this is not really the first dent in Switzerland's traditionally strict neutrality. As part of the NATO's Partnership for Peace, it has had a peacekeeping battalion in Kosovo for 2 decades. And after the war in Ukraine broke out, it also joined the European Union's sanctions against Russia. And now it has joined a European defense initiative. It goes without saying that whatever little veneer of neutrality was left for the country is certainly fading out. The United States has got a racial problem, and it's not just restricted to African Americans or Hispanics. It extends beyond that. Let's just talk about the state of affairs in the tech sector specifically. It is true that Asians or Asian Americans make up a significant portion of the staffers in the American tech industry. Silicon Valley is a beacon of Asian representation. Asians, after all, account for 1/4 of the population in the Bay Area. But do not let that mislead you, because a majority of this minority is typecast as worker bees. They're not given opportunities to climb up the ladder. You will find a lot of Asian engineers, but only a handful of managers or executives. There are big names like Sundar Pichai and Eric Yuan, but they are just fig leaves, and the reality is slightly more embarrassing. In some companies like Meta, people of Asian descent outnumber white employees, but their numbers fall off sharply in the leadership roles. Let's just get you some figures here. As of the year 2021, 46% of Meta employees were Asian American, but they accounted for just 27% of the executives. And white employees, on the other hand, accounted for 39% of Meta's workforce. But 58% of its executives, you see, Asians are often shut out of positions of greater power, profile, and even pay. Is America's tech industry racially diverse? Yes, it is. But is it racially equitable? No, it's not. Victims of racial discrimination have reported, in fact, that they are deliberately left out of opportunities and initiatives, even if they are well within their scope. Despite years of experience and positive feedback, they are denied promotions, and some are told that they are not senior or collaborative enough, while others get to hear that they don't fit in and are still outsiders. Managers often end up making assumptions about what work will be suiting an Asian employee. And these assumptions are fueled by racial stereotypes, such as the obedient, subservient Asian, or Asians are good at math or programming. Why does this happen? Because of implicit bias and inherent racism. And this has been happening for decades, by the way. But now employees of Asian descent are speaking up. They are dragging tech firms to court. Many have given testimonies, in fact, revealing how they were kept in shadows, denied leadership roles, and women had it worse. They had to face inappropriate racial comments. One was told she was given opportunities because some CEO had an Asian fetish. The US tech sector has had a troubled history with Asian staffers, and it has to do with the bigger picture of the country. Do you know about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882? This act banned Chinese immigrants in the US, and it wasn't repealed until 1943. And then there were immigration quotas that limited the number of migrants from Asian countries. Many Asians could immigrate to the United States only after these quotas were lifted in 1965. Others came in through the H-1B program, which set aside visas for the tech workers. The Bay Area is home to some Asian billionaires, but it's also home to Asians who collect recyclables on the street. Implicit biases have always been there. But anti-Asian sentiment particularly flared in America during the pandemic. Its own president, by the way, went about calling the coronavirus as Kung Flu. If you watch American sitcoms or read books by ignorant authors, Asians are often portrayed as overachieving yet tame side characters. The ripple effects prevail in the job sector as well, where Asians are looked at as workaholics, but not really leaders. If you are watching this show from India, you will relate to this story strongly. Did you notice a significant jump in tomato prices of late? In some areas, the cost of tomatoes has increased by 445%, and it has become the latest gripe for Indians in a country where potatoes, tomatoes, and onions are staple items. When vegetable prices surpass the cost of gasoline, eyebrows are bound to be raised. A McDonald's restaurant in New Delhi pasted a notice on its wall announcing that tomatoes will be temporarily unavailable. Tomato prices are being compared to that of petrol and diesel. Can you believe that? And why not? At the start of the year, in India's capital, 1 kilogram of tomatoes was worth 22 rupees. That is $0.27. But now it is worth between 120 to 140 rupees, which amounts to $1.4 to $1.6. And in contrast, petrol is selling for around 96 rupees a litre in Delhi. That is $1.1. Social media is abuzz with tomato-related memes. Have a look at this one. It shows how tomato prices have outrun diesel and petrol prices. The price surge is even fueling crimes. A farmer in the southern state of Karnataka had 60 kilograms of tomatoes stolen. So what really is happening? How have things reached this point? Why have tomato prices skyrocketed in India? Let's take a closer look. Tomatoes usually become expensive in the lean production months of June and July, but the impact this year has been exaggerated. And why is that? While putting together this report for you, we spoke to an agricultural expert. The surge in prices is due to three reasons mainly. Number one being extremely hot temperatures. Number two, untimely heavy rains in some growing areas. And number three, pest attacks in the farms of southern India. And climate change, of course, has a huge role to play here. While such price hikes have been common in the last 2 to 3 decades, the rise is especially dramatic this year due to the extreme weather conditions. And the good part is, tomato costs will once again return to normalcy in the month of August. And the bad part is, the farmers will have to bear the brunt. You see, the tomato is not a safe crop for the farmers. It is not procured by the government like cotton, sugarcane, or even rice. When there is inflation in tomato prices, the government generally interferes and subsidizes the cost. But when the prices plummet due to overproduction, which would happen in a month or two, the farmers have to deal with the losses. And due to this reason and others, there have been shifts in the agricultural prices in India. Farmers in states like Telangana, even Tamil Nadu, have turned to growing rice instead of tomato. Because rice is safer and is in consistent demand from the government. Most vegetables and fruits generally have huge fluctuations in their prices, but staples like wheat and rice are less likely to bring losses for the farmers. But what's the way out? What are the solutions? And how can India be better prepared for the vegetable price surges? Through better planning and preparedness. Tomatoes thrive in the temperature range of 21 to 24 degrees Celsius. When mercury soars above 32 degrees Celsius, which it easily does in India in the summer months, the tomato harvest is bound to take a hit. And there is a need for better storage of tomatoes as well. India has abundant cold storage facilities. As of the year 2020, there were 8,200 of them. But the problem is 75% of them are suitable only for storing single commodities, mainly potatoes. And if the tomato harvest right before the peak summer could be stored efficiently, it would give some relief to the annual price surge in June and July. It's a historic moment for Indonesia and Sri Lanka. They are getting back items that were stolen from them years ago. And not just any ordinary items, by the way. These are treasures. Stolen artifacts that they are now getting back. Who stole them? The Netherlands. Why? Well, this was during the colonial era, and now the Netherlands is facing up to its colonial past. It will be returning treasures that were looted from Indonesia and Sri Lanka in the colonial era. The Dutch government will be returning around 478 pieces of stolen art and cultural artifacts to the two former colonies. Most of them are not only extremely valuable, but also culturally significant. You know what the Netherlands has said? That the items being returned, quote unquote, should have never been in the Netherlands. A government-appointed commission looked into illegal Dutch colonial acquisitions now being displayed in museums in the Netherlands. A quick backgrounder here. This commission I'm referring to came into being after a request by Indonesia to return the art pieces. The items being returned include a richly decorated cannon, also jewelry and precious metals, also a collection of hundreds of precious stones, gold and silver objects, which is called the Lombok treasure, named after the Indonesian island of Lombok, from where it was looted. This was in the year 1894. In the year 1977, by the way, a part of this treasure was given back to Indonesia. And there's also the cannon of Kandy, made of bronze, silver, gold and rubies, which will be returned to Sri Lanka, believed to have fallen into Dutch hands in 1765. This decision to return the items comes after the king's apology for the sufferings of hundreds of thousands of people under slavery, by the way. And this is not an isolated occurrence. Countries around the world recently have been facing up to their colonial past. After all, the Berlin Museum earlier had announced its decision to return hundreds of human skulls to the former German colony of East Africa. Just 2 years ago, in 2021, France had decided to return statues taken from the West African nation of Benin. But what about the United Kingdom? When will India get back what the UK snatched away from it? I know what you're thinking. This question seems to be as old as time, but it must be asked repeatedly because it deserves a clear answer. When will India get back the Kohinoor? And why should Britain still hold on to it? While countries around the world are facing up to their colonial past, will Britain do the same? You must never go anywhere without your phone, right? Our mobile phones and social media applications today help us stay in touch with what's happening around us. But what if the government starts using phones to their advantage? What if it uses our mobile phones to create an Orwellian dystopia? France has approved a bill which is a bit similar to that idea. The police will now be able to spy on people through mobile phones and other devices. The controversial reform bill has sparked criticism, especially from human rights groups. Will the new reform infringe on the citizens' privacy rights? What is the French government saying? What is its justification? Our next report getting you the answers.
While France is witnessing protests against the Macron government, lawmakers have passed a bill which is drawing a lot of criticism. So, what is the new justice reform bill? With 80 votes in favour of the bill, lawmakers have agreed that the police should be able to spy on suspects through electronic devices. The devices can range from mobile phone cameras to the microphones on laptops. The police can access the geolocation of a suspect and track them down. But there's an exception. The suspect's crime should be punishable for at least 5 years in jail. How does the government justify this move? MPs in President Macron's camp say that the amendment limits the use of surveillance. How? They say that the remote spying will take place, and I quote, when justified by the nature and seriousness of the crime. Officials say the duration of the surveillance can't exceed 6 months and that the provision has to be approved by a judge. The government has excluded some people from being spied on. Professionals like doctors, journalists, lawyers, judges and members of parliament cannot be considered targets. Why does it matter what profession a criminal belongs to? Does this bill not consider equality? The opposition parties and human rights groups have called out the government. They have called the bill an authoritarian snooper's charter. The opposition says that once the bill becomes a law, it will be practically impossible to dodge government surveillance, even with VPN services or encrypted messaging. Digital rights groups have shown concern on the infringement of fundamental liberties. They have highlighted certain rights that could be compromised, like the right to security, right to a private life, right to private correspondence, and the right to freedom of movement. Rights groups say that the government is using this as a smokescreen to establish a surveillance state. In response to the heavy criticism, Justice Minister Eric Dupond-Moretti says that the law will be used to a dozen cases a year. He added that France is far away from the totalitarianism shown in George Orwell's novel 1984. Experts say the timing of the bill's passage couldn't be worse. France is reeling under intense protests against Emmanuel Macron's government. The protests are for the 17-year-old who died due to police brutality in a suburb. Will the new bill add fuel to the fire? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Have you ever had a conversation using only emojis? Do you know the actual meaning of each and every emoji that you use? And if you don't, you're not the only one. In fact, in Canada, a judge had to decide what the thumbs up emoji actually means. A farmer has been ordered to pay over $60,000 for an unfulfilled contract after a judge ruled that the thumbs up emoji is just as valid as a signature. But what exactly is this case all about? What is the story of the farmer here? Let's take you back to the year 2021. In the Canadian province of Saskatchewan, a grain buyer, Kent Mickleborough, sent out a text message to a farmer saying that he wanted to buy 86 tons of flax at nearly $12 per bushel. Mickleborough texted a contract to the farmer, Chris Archer, and asked him to confirm the contract in the message. Archer responded with the thumbs up emoji. Mickleborough texted a contract to the farmer. And this is where things get interesting. The farmer did not deliver the flax and prices of the crop had also increased. Why did Archer not adhere to the contract? And what did he mean by the thumbs up emoji? These questions drove the farmer to court. Mickleborough showed many past contracts where Archer had replied with the thumbs up emoji. But Archer said the emoji meant that he received the contract in text. That technically means that he read the text but did not confirm the delivery. Let's just tell you what Archer said in an affidavit. I'm quoting. I deny that Mickleborough accepted the thumbs up emoji as a digital signature of the incomplete contract. I did not have time to review the flax contract and merely wanted to indicate that I did receive his text message. Archer's lawyer objected to his client's cross-examination. Why is that? He said that his client was not an expert in emojis. Our question is, who can truly be an expert in emojis? Even Justice Timothy Keene had to refer to an emoji dictionary. What is the dictionary definition of the thumbs up emoji, you wonder? It says, and I'm quoting, the thumbs up emoji is used to express assent, approval, or encouragement in digital communications. Justice Keene passed a judgment that can be considered historical. He said that the thumbs up emoji is a non-traditional means to sign a document. Mickleborough won the case, and Archer now has to pay over $60,000 in penalty. But there's more to the story. Keene said that if the emoji is used to signify acceptance, it's going to open floodgates to new interpretations of other emojis, including similar ones like the fist bump, the handshake. It should not come as a surprise if there are more similar cases in the future. There are several new emojis released almost every year. In the year 2021, the Unicode Consortium released 112 new emojis, and last year 31 new emojis were released. A crutch and low battery sign among the examples. Some emojis are left to imagination, open for interpretation. Let's take the example of the shaking hand. What does it actually mean? Are you physically shaking hands? Are you shocked because of an incident? Are you caught in an earthquake? Another ambiguous one is the folded hands emoji. A lot of debate about this. Some people think of it as a high five. Others use it as a sign for prayer. The two interpretations are poles apart and can cause major confusion. Imagine texting your relative that your grandma is sick with the emoji. You might need to do a lot of explaining after that if it is interpreted as a high five. I think many of us could sympathize with the farmer. Most of us may respond to a text with a heart or a thumbs up emoji without actually paying attention or thinking about the significance or the consequences. It's usually to let the other person know that we have acknowledged their message, which is similar to what the farmer did in this case. It's World Chocolate Day today, an occasion for all chocolate lovers to come together and celebrate chocolates. Our next report telling you more about the significance of the day, its background, and how and why it is celebrated.
The ultimate celebration of culinary brilliance, chocolate possesses the magical ability to elevate desserts into delectable masterpieces. Whether as a luxurious ingredient or a delightful standalone indulgence, chocolate promises an irresistible treat that captivates your senses and leaves them craving for more. The celebration of chocolate's arrival in Europe serves as the inspiration for World Chocolate Day. Although the plant itself is not European in origin, chocolate bars as we know them today were created in Europe. From Belgium's Salon du Chocolat to Switzerland's artistic chocolate sculptures and Bangkok dedicating an entire weekend to chocolates this year, every corner of the globe has its unique way of honoring this beloved delicacy. So forget about counting calories and watching your diet. Today is the day to indulge. And why not start with breakfast itself? A bowl of mouth-watering chocolate breakfast cereal or chocolate pancakes will kick off your day on the perfect note. For those seeking a refreshing and nutritious twist, chocolate can be blended into smoothies or transformed into a smoothie bowl topped with fresh fruits and nuts. Maybe some luscious chocolate shakes with delectable chocolate donuts will also fit in at any point of the day as a snack. And needless to say, a chocolate mousse or a rich chocolate dessert of your choice will be a great post-dinner finisher. Remember, it's okay to let go once in a while and relish these delightful treats. And who said chocolate can't be healthy? Dark chocolate with a cocoa content of 70% or above is a powerful source of antioxidants. Oh yes, chocolate can also make a great ingredient for a face mask, a body scrub, and moisturizing lotion. So whether you like it dark or light, on your face or in your tummy, this World Chocolate Day, let's celebrate the magic of cocoa and embrace the diverse ways in which it brings joy to our lives. With Jasnoor Kaur, Rachel Charles, WION World is One.
In a major blow to Samsung, the global tech giant, its second quarter operating profit has plummeted by a staggering 96% as it faces a chip glut crisis. The ongoing chip glut has severely impacted the firm's key business, which has now led to this significant decline. With an estimated operating profit of $459 million, this marks Samsung's lowest profit for any quarter since the year 2009. Investors were prepared for the decline as it was largely in line with the market analysts' forecasts. Samsung's shares fell 1.4% in early morning trade on Friday following the announcement. Detailed earnings are eagerly awaited, scheduled to be released on the 27th of July, which will shed more light on the company's performance and also provide insights into the path ahead. However, losses in the memory chip business are expected to have reduced in the second quarter due to increased sales of DRAM chips. Although memory prices fell, they did not plummet as initially feared. Meanwhile, Samsung's mobile business is set to unveil its latest foldable smartphones earlier than usual, and this month, this strategic move is aimed at extending its dominance in the premium phone market before Apple releases its next iPhone. However, the outlook for Samsung's mobile profits in the third quarter remains uncertain as weak consumer sentiment persists in the global smartphone market. Despite some recent recovery in the economic indicators, Samsung's revenue for April to June is expected to show a 22% decline from the previous year. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
White House approves the provision of U.S. cluster bombs for Ukraine. The move will bypass a U.S. law that prohibits transfer of cluster munitions with a failure rate of more than 1%. Russian hackers brought Japan's busiest cargo port to a virtual standstill for 2 days with a cyber attack on the system that manages the loading and offloading of containers. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that the decoupling from the U.S. and Chinese economies would be virtually impossible and would destabilize global markets. 6 Rohingya people killed in clashes that broke out in a Bangladesh refugee camp just hours after an international criminal court prosecutor visited the settlements. The killings come in the wake of rivalry between insurgent groups operating in the camps. Israeli forces killed 2 Palestinian militants as a firefight erupts during a military raid on the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Czech Republic Prime Minister promises to increase military aid and send additional weapons to Ukraine following a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky in Prague. Ukraine says its troops have advanced by more than a kilometer near the eastern city of Bakhmut in the past day of fighting against Russian forces. Plans to discharge treated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant clear their last regulatory hurdle in Japan, as China said it would ban some food imports over the move. Second seed Aryna Sabalenka overcame a scare to reach the 3rd round of Wimbledon. The Belarusian had to come back from a set down against Varvara Gracheva to claim a 2-6, 7-5, 6-2 triumph. 2-time champions Petra Kvitova eased into the 3rd round of Wimbledon with a straight sets win over Alexandra Sasnovich. 9th seed Kvitova completed a 6-2, 6-2 victory for her 7th straight triumph on grass.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. We are leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
Надо еще кого-то.
आने वाली खुशी के लिए एक ख्याल ही काफी है। ईबिक्स कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है। कभी कभी खुशी के लिए एक उदाहरण ही काफी है। ईबिक्स कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness. Yoga.